Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Welcome out to Cabinet on the 4th of April 2023. Apologies for absence. We've got them from Councillor Lax, I believe. Any others? No. In which case, we'll move on to the next item, which is declarations of interest. Councillor Reading.
Thank you, Leader. Obviously, the paper refers to the interaction with our trading company, and I need to declare interest, therefore, as a director of the trading company.
Brilliant. As a non-pecuniary interest, you will remain in the room. Is that correct? Brilliant. Thank you. Simon.
Thank you, Chair. Just for belt and braces, I'd like to declare that I too am a director of the company, albeit I'm an officer, not a member.
Thank you. Brilliant. Thanks, Simon. Any more? No. As ever, if any arise during discussion, please just interrupt to make it known as soon as you possibly can. First item, and the only item, in fact, of our agenda tonight is the Housing Pathway Scheme Contract Award. This paper relates to the contract we've got in place at the moment with Spring Housing, and we've had that since 2019. And this seeks to renew that for 2 further years with the option to extend for 2 more 12-month periods. So it's a 2+1+1 contract. The Spring Housing contract has been in place since 2019. They've performed incredibly well against the KPIs that we gave them back in 2019. And so we are seeking to use those that organisation again. We're doing it jointly with Cannock Chase District Council. And this approach, I think we're all kind of proud as a district council, one of the few district councils across the country taking what I call the housing first approach, which is done incredibly well in Birmingham and other large sort of urban conurbations, rather than just providing accommodation to the built environment for rough sleepers and those presenting as homeless. This is looking at the contributory factors and making sure that we address those as well as the lack of accommodation to really try and drive out those demands on accommodation and actually really help these people sort lives as well as accommodation. KPIs are included in the paper, but sort of highlights of that: respond to reports of rough sleeping within 24 hours of being informed 100% of the time, providing at least 12 hours of support per district per week, maintaining the standard of accommodation to decent home standards, and ensure all homes are fully furnished, maintaining a minimum of 5 units of housing first accommodation per district at any one time. They're quite lofty goals, actually. I think really helpful for us in the district. I know it's something that, particularly since COVID has sort of been easing off and people have gone back to normality, we see many more people presenting as homeless and rough sleeping on the streets. I think it's something we should be incredibly proud of as an authority, that not only are we providing accommodation, but we're also really looking to tackle the root causes of that, to really help the people in the district. Lizzie Barson has been working on this with her team. Lizzie, is there anything that you wanted to add that I've not covered?
No, I think you've covered it and summed it up well. We've worked really well this spring. We went out to competitive tender. Spring came back with the most advantageous quote, and their performance, I think, speaks for itself. So we're really keen to re-award the contracts, continue the good work that they've done to date into the future. And any further extensions of the contract beyond the 2 years will be subject to further RSI funding. So we will keep Cabinet updated with regards to that as we move forward.
Brilliant. And perhaps I should have said that this is being funded through the Rough Sleep Initiative, isn't it? Which means that it's essentially revenue or cost neutral to the district council.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Any questions? Andy.
Thank you, Leader. I fully support the award of the contract, and I fully support. I really like the way that we're taking a proactive approach to rough sleeping and homelessness. I think that's exactly the way to go, rather than just sort of find a solution to the problem afterwards. Let's actually try and do everything we can to stop this happening in the first place. It's just a quick question on that proactive side of it. So I read a couple of places in the paper where we've got a process to deal with people who present themselves to the council that need help. Brilliant, big thumbs up. Let's just look at a real life scenario. Yeah, we see a rough sleeper, homeless person somewhere in Lichfield, somewhere in our district. Are we as an organisation looking to looking to go to them to suggest options. When I say go to them, I mean actually go to them. Is that part of the plan? I apologise if that's in the paper somewhere. It may well be. So I think that's important that we do actually make sure that this contract means that we actually do solve the real problem and help these folk that obviously need our help by going to them proactively. My second question is just on the financial side of it. I think I also read somewhere in the paper that we've got an agreement with Cannock Chase that if the government money subsides or is not enough, they will top it up. So I'm assuming we will be doing the same from our side. Cool. Do we know what our sort of, have we got limits on our maximum exposure on that? What's our sort of thinking on how far we go on the financials side of that?
Cool. Thanks, Andy. Can I take the first one that I know the answer to, and then you can take the second one, which I don't know the answer to? So in terms of proactive, yes, and I think so 3.6 in the KPIs. When we say respond to reports of rough sleeping within 24 hours, that is literally going out, and it's not just logging on a system and saying yes, okay, someone's there. It's actually going out to the last known location. Is 24 hours ambitious enough? Hopefully it will be, yes, but clearly people, by virtue of the situation they're in, do move around. So we'd like to see it quicker than 24 hours, but that's an absolute sort of backstop. And then the 12 hours of outreach support that we're doing per district per week. Actually, I think the team will know the key areas where rough sleepers tend to be, whether that's city centre locations or perhaps there's known sort of hotspots around the district. So I think 12 hours is actually sort of more than adequate to make sure that we're out there, and if they're not being reported, we can actually find them in those 12 hours. Is there anything you wanted to add to that, or to the funding issue about what our exposure is?
No, you've covered the first one perfectly. I think it's the only performance report that measure that we don't or haven't hit exactly, and that's because people do move around. But the team do go out, and the only other time we don't go out is when we know the individual. We've already perhaps gone out to them yesterday or the day before. They told us they don't want that help, and we will, rather than badger them, we will leave them a short while before we re-engage.
Okay, yeah.
So the team does try to have that personal touch, and certainly much sooner than 24 hours, but that 24 hours is the worst case situation. With regards to the funding, we monitor the contract really closely. There's been no suggestion at all to date that the cost of the contract would extend beyond what we've laid down. We've worked really closely with the Section 151 officer with regards to this, and should we have a real hike in homeless cases and need more outreach and need more support and need more activity to take place and grow the actual activity within the contract, we would have to look at that as a question and discuss that again with Cabinet. So we don't foresee that the costs would increase, but it would only increase if we really had a huge hike in cases, and again we would then need to address that as a collective to determine how we then make sure we support those people moving forward and feed that into our NTFS moving forward.
Cool, cheers, thanks.
Yeah, answer. Thank you. Thank you, Lizzie. Yeah, Ian.
Thank you very much. Lizzie, just I suppose there's a little bit of follow-on from Andy's question there. As I understand it, obviously we've a statutory responsibility if anybody presents as homeless to help them be homed. I'm conscious, obviously, in a fairly recent cabinet meeting, we approved additional resource for obviously this area within the council. Appreciating it again, as Doug's made the point in introducing the paper, this is a revenue neutral service for at the moment, but as you've just explained, obviously we would need to obviously fund appropriately if there was an increased need. How would we then fit in with the additional officer resource that we're bringing in or have brought in fairly recently? Does that give us a bit of capacity, or in reality would it be over and above the resource that we've already approved in terms of additional support in this area?
So that those three roles we've identified potential staff for those, and they start very soon, and that will be able to give us a good idea of how many cases we're able to get through and what capacity we're able to deal with. I don't foresee that this would be the same staff. So those staff there are for maintaining tenancies, supporting people, homelessness and housing optional cases. This is more outreach, where we're going out to actually target and deal with people, and where we'd be asking Spring to do that on our behalf. So they wouldn't necessarily be the same reasons, although some of the clients may be the same. But I think whilst the question is a good one, I think we're quite confident that the cost of this are unlikely to increase significantly, but if they were to, we would bring them back, and Anthony is aware of that, or Section 151 is aware of that as a potential question, we'd make sure we bring that back to discussion. But like it's not, we also have other streams of funding, and homelessness prevention grant being one of those that we may then be able to use to us to support this, so it won't necessarily be a pressure on the council's resources itself.
Thank you. That was your question. Richard, did you have a question? No, Rob? No. Brilliant. In which case then, thank you, Lizzie, and then we'll go to the recommendations in the paper, which are at 2.1 and 2.2. So this is the awarding of the contract for Spring Housing for an initial 2-year term with 2 optional extensions of 12 months. Then furthermore, to delegate authority to the Cabinet member in consultation with the Assistant Director of Resident Business Services to award those 2 optional extensions subject to the cost being funded from existing budgets, including external funding. All those in favour, indicate. Brilliant, that's unanimous. Thank you all, and thank you, Lizzie, as well, and your team for bringing that forward. That brings us to the end of the agenda for tonight. It also brings us to the end of our Cabinet meetings for this last 4 years. So thank you, all of you, for all the contributions you've made as a Cabinet. And it has not been easy. I know it takes time away from your families on a Tuesday evening as well. And it has been a ride for 4 years indeed. And hopefully I enjoyed your support throughout those 4 years to varying degrees of success, but I think we've got a lot to be proud of. And thank you to Simon and all of your team as well for all that you've done here over the last 4 years. So thank you, and hopefully we'll see you back in a few weeks' time for our next Cabinet meeting. Thank you all. Good evening.